공간 자체가 정말 강하다고 느꼈습니다. 사선들로 이루어진 천장, 아치형 문들, 그리고 거친 콘크리트 벽면이 인상적이었어요. 그런데 공간이 강하면서도 어떤 편안함이 있었어요. 눈에 부드러운 곡선들 때문인지, 나무로 된 천장과 계단 때문인지, 아니면 어떤 강직함 안에 부드러움이 있다고 느껴졌어요. 그리고 계단이 있어서 공간을 1층과 2층으로 볼 수 있고, 계단을 오르내리는 과정에서도 전시장을 볼 수 있다는 게 특별했어요. 보통 이렇게 개성이 강한 공간을 만나면 당황스럽고 어렵게 느껴지는데, 이상하게 편안하면서 뭔가 끌리는 데가 있었어요. 특히 나무로 된 높은 천장이 가장 매력적이었는데, 고요하면서도 웅장한 느낌이 우주와도 같다는 느낌이 들었어요. 그래서 이 천장을 배경으로 하늘의 별들을 바라보는 느낌의 어떤 것을 하면 좋겠다는 생각을 했어요. 공간 자체가 너무 강했기 때문에 평소에 하던 보일 듯 말 듯한 작업은 할 수가 없었어요. 그래서 공간과 제 작업의 균형을 맞출 수 있는 방법이 어떤 것이 있을까 고민하다가 공간 보수공사 때 새로 달았던 조명을 떼고 미술관의 공간을 밝혀주는 조명 작업을 하면 좋겠다는 생각을 했어요. 원래 조명들이 있던 자리에 그대로 조명 작품들을 달았는데 그 주변의 공간들에 따라 곡선이나 사선 또는 단순한 직선이 나오기도 했어요. 선들의 방향은 공간의 모서리를 향하기도 하고 관객의 위치에 따라 작품의 곡선이 문의 곡선과 만나기도 하고 멀어지기도 했어요. 크리스로 작가님과의 작업 과정에 대한 대화를 처음 나눴을 때 비슷한 부분들이 많아서 놀랐었어요. 과정은 비슷하지만 크리스로 작가님의 선들은 너무 자유롭고 즐거워 보였어요. 저도 선으로 작업을 하기 때문에 드로잉적인 부분에서 연결되는 지점들이 있는 것 같아요. 하지만 서로의 작업에서 대비되는 부분들 때문에 더 잘 어울리는 것 같다는 생각을 했어요. 그래서 저는 딱 떨어지는 곡선이나 직선을 주로 사용하였고, 배치에 있어서는 격자 구조 안에서 이루어진 부분이 있어요. 무언가를 진짜로 보기 위해서는 시간이 필요하다고 생각해요. 공간을 천천히 바라보고 의식하면 평소에 보이지 않던 많은 것들을 발견할 수 있고 느낄 수 있어요. 공간의 새로운 면들도 발견하게 되고 더 나아가 자신의 몸과 공간과의 관계까지 볼 수 있게 돼요. 이번 전시를 통해 최만린미술관의 매력적인 공간을 몸으로 체험하고 또 몸으로 기억해주면 좋을 것 같아요.
My first impression of this space is something that is perhaps a bit more intuitive, emotional, atmospheric. When I've encountered this space on my first visit, I remember distinctly a feeling of stillness or silence, and I think that this was a kind of very bodily feeling, like something I felt with my body. So I think there's a kind of beautiful stillness that exists here that I think can also border on being spiritual. Like when I entered this space, I felt there are maybe elements of this space that can add to a spiritual experience in some ways. So part of this quiet, part of this still. I think serenity is another word that I feel when I'm entering the space. Particularly when I entered the large entryway, and then when I entered the even larger open space, something just feels kind of magnificent or impactful about that experience. And then the layers, there's lots of different layers in this space, and there's something about these layers that have been added over time that is quite fascinating as well. The space definitely had influence on my approach to the work that I created or produced for this project. There's a stillness or a silence here, but in some ways I felt it's almost like a moving stillness. So yes, that was very much a part of the process while working with the space and in tandem with the space. Conversation, I think, is an interesting word. I have always had dialogues with spaces or conversations with spaces, I'm pretty sure of it, but I never thought about it until this project. The curators had asked several times what would a conversation with this space be like, and when I sat in this space and I actually tried to think about a conversation, I think some conversational processes actually happened. It kept guiding me back to our first conversation. Positioning of things and the thinking of things still almost maintain quite true to my initial dialogue with the space. But I do think that when people enter the space, there is something physical and something atmospheric that people can feel immediately when you enter the space. And I think that's the thing that I would wish people could feel. And if people can feel that, I'm totally happy. They can feel something, then I think that's a total and wonderful dialogue between us and the visitors. I think that layers is a concept that's been part of my work for many years. And I think this house, the space, and the layering over time is something that's continually fascinated me. And I like this idea that we are adding another layer to this space. I think this space definitely has lots of layers, and that's why this space can age. When I first started to kind of begin this creative process, I think Oh Jong and I were feeling kind of some of the same things. And I had a feeling that we would, whatever we made would somehow work together in a nice way. I think visually, in some ways, we are both working with line and plane. He has these very delicate, very beautifully crafted lines, and I think the space becomes his plane. And I think for me, this layering, this idea of layering and the juxtaposition between plane and line the tension is something that I've always been fascinated with. And I think what's interesting with this project is we've somehow formed a similar relationship where I've done mostly things on the plane or through two-dimensional processes, and he's continued with his line work in a very beautiful three-dimensional way. And I think together, at least in my opinion, it's working quite harmoniously and in my, I guess my humble point of view, quite beautifully as well.